You're watching Creative Outcomes. We're a pod focused on helping agencies build scalable businesses that they can ultimately sell and realize their ideal outcome. I'm Ryan Watson. I'm a partner at Upsourced Accounting. I have helped countless clients raise capital and eventually sell. And most recently, I actually helped sell an influencer marketing technology and agency as the in-house COO, CFO.
Hi, I'm Meredith Pickrell. I'm a controller here at Upsourced Accounting, and I work with mostly digital agencies, helping them set goals, drive growth, and achieve their goals. And right now, I'm working a lot with several clients that are going through sales. So it's a pretty timely discussion.
Yeah, well, and this is, look, our thought is like, let's have some fun with this thing. I mean, I'm coming off of an acquisition just under 2 years ago, and I lived it. And then, of course, we live this with our clients every day. And, we've kind of felt, Meredith and I, there's not a lot of great resources out there. Going through an exit or thinking about maybe selling your company is this really lonely place where there aren't a lot of people there to help you out, and the stakes are incredibly high. Mistakes are very expensive. And so we thought, well, hey, let's shine a light on this. Let's share the things that we know. Let's bring our clients and other agencies owners on to share what they know, and hopefully we can help. So if this is, this is interesting, great. Hit the subscribe button. We'll make sure you get notified every time we have something new to share, and we'll bring you lessons learned, news, tips, and also interviews, like I said, from other fellow agency owners who have lived it and have some scars that they're willing to share. So
maybe every once in a while we'll throw into something non-accounting, something interesting.
Yeah, well, it's all interesting. That's the thing. It's all going to be interesting. Some of it'll be accounting, some of it won't be accounting, right? That's our lens, but it's not everything we talk about. Yeah. So I don't know. How you feeling about this, Meredith?
I'm excited. It's going to be fun. Hopefully we can help people. Give them a toolbook, a rule book to follow.
Yeah. You mean a toolbox, I think. I don't know that many people are walking out there with a toolbook, but it tells you how much, what kind of weekend warrior you are, Meredith.
I'm more of a gardener.
Right, okay. Fair enough. It shows. Okay, so let's get into it. We'll keep this first one pretty light, really high level. Mm-hmm. We thought we might start off with just, let's call it 5 fundamentals for building a sellable agency, right? Something that somebody is eventually going to want to buy in the future. So let me start with the first one, repeatable revenue generation. So this obviously is key. It's maybe one of the more important ones on here. When you go to sell your agency, it's going to be purchased for a multiple of EBITDA. And at a certain size, you can expect somewhere between 6 and 12 times EBITDA. But the difference between 6 and 12 is really a function of growth. How fast is your agency growing year over year? And at a particular point, relying on referrals, organic, inbound, those sorts of things, they're not going to be able to generate consistent growth. And one of the first things that a potential buyer is going to be looking for is, do you have a process where you can have a predictable amount of new business growth, period over period? And so that, I'd say, if you do nothing else here, it's take that one to heart.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2.
Yeah. So a business, not a job. Here it's like, hey, how can we, if you as the business owner go to sell your agency, you step away. I mean, maybe you're there for a certain amount of time after the transaction, maybe you step away totally, but how can the business be sustaining after you are gone? How is the business not just you as the owner?
Yeah, totally. I mean, again, they're buying the business. They're not buying you or your job.
Yep.
And I'd say this is a thing that is, we work with a lot of agencies in like the 1 to 5 million range. And this is probably the number one thing for an agency owner to sort of internalize and work on. It's, how does this thing become an organism unto itself?
I think this is an area in future podcasts we can dive into even more, because that's easy to say, but then as the owner, you're out building the relationships and bringing in the business, and how do you get it to a point where it's functioning as a standalone?
Yeah, totally. And let me also say, I agree. And here's another thing that we get into, but on the same topic, and you and I have talked about this before. I can tell you, having lived through a deal, you'll get to the point where you agree on a price, you sign an LOI, everybody's really happy, and then the fun really starts, and that fun is due diligence. And due diligence is like the most awful experience that I've ever gone through. I'm happy I did it, but it's just 60 days worth of somebody looking at every single document that you have ever created ever, right? So anytime you've ever hired an employee, do you have the right onboarding documents, the right non-competes, non-solicits, IP assignments? If you're issuing equity, did you do that correctly? Do you have 409As on your equity? And your financials are going to look at every set, every set of forecasts that you created, every monthly financial statement that you've created. Not to mention, and I know you'll hit on this, Meredith, but the fact that obviously we're accountants, looking at the financials and making sure that these are real GAAP-based financials. You're doing accrual accounting.
Yep.
These things, like, they don't matter. They may not feel like they matter in the moment. Like, I just really care about, am I generating cash? And am I paying my people? And are we having fun? And are we producing great work? And I agree with all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that goes out the window as soon as due diligence starts. And then you're going to wish that, oh my gosh, I wish I would have taken these things really seriously and I was buttoned up.
Yeah. Because
that's the number one deal killer. Right? You come in and an agency, again, or a buyer is going to be looking at your a function of your profit. But if you produce your financial statements in accordance with like GAAP, you're not doing them the right way.
Yeah.
Then that profit number you can't rely on, and then you can't put a price on it, and then you move on and you buy somebody else. And I've seen it happen firsthand. So
a piece of interesting advice that I heard recently was that you should put the reporting in place now that you think that you'll need in 3 years from now, or when you go to sell that agency or that business, like start today. So it's not this daunting task to come up with all of these EBITDA adjustments or whatever you think that, whatever the reporting is going to be, to start practicing it now.
And the thing is, like, that's super easy to do, right? Like, it's not hard to capture information in the moment. The difference between doing it the right way and the wrong way is actually not a lot of time or money. But the difference between trying to go back and recreate the difference between the right way and the wrong way in the middle of diligence is the difference between selling the agency and not. So anyways, we should go into more. Clearly, we have a lot to say on this particular topic. We'll go into more detail about that later. All right, let me hit number 3. So number 3. Creating a differentiated business. A lot of people call this a niche, which I think I'm a believer in having a specific niche, but I don't think that it means that you have to have a niche in the traditional way. But it does mean that you have an agency that is differentiated in an important way. So an example, for instance, we were just talking about this around the office this week. Because of the changes in Apple's privacy policy and some of the things Google Chrome is doing with cookies, there's a giant amount of demand for agencies who specialize in Google as a Google official partner, right? SEM, SEO, in conjunction with Google as an official partner. And those agencies are getting more than 12x EBITDA inbound offers as a function of their differentiation in the market, right? So these folks who are trying to fill this gap, these agency holding companies who say, oh my God, this is now much more important than we realized. We got to fill this capability. Not going to generic agencies who do all sorts of things, including SEM. They're going to the folks who are the experts, the folks who have a clear positioning in this. And I can tell you from experience, when I sold our most recent agency, we were an influencer marketing company, but we focused on CPG and food. And we ended up selling not to an agency holding company or some other folk. We sold to a company who focused on performance marketing in the grocery space. And again, not only does that help, improve your ability to position yourself as a solution to the problem that your buyer is looking for, and not just bolting on revenue. But when you have a differentiator, the possible world of acquirers gets really small really quickly, right? So we knew that there were like 4 or 5 major players in our space who were ultimately going to buy us. It was much easier to build relationships with those people, to be on their radar, to have partnerships, conversations along the way. It gets very easy when you boil the ecosystem down to something small, and you only do that through differentiating what you do and who you do it for.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4, consistent profit. And I won't go into a lot of detail on this because I think it speaks for itself. But as I mentioned, your price is a function of multiple on EBITDA or profit, right? And it is important not just to show that you can demonstrate repeatable revenue growth, but that you can do so by maintaining a consistent profit level. And Again, should be no surprise. When we sold our agency, the number one reason that we were attractive to them, or I should say maybe the number 2 or the number 3 reason that we were attracted to them was our ability to generate outsized margins compared to our competitors. Now, I'm sure you see that in the deals you're working on too, Meredith.
Yeah. Keep going back to those EBITDA adjustments and explaining those transactions that have happened. And
yeah, and that's something to dig into at some point too. It's like there's a lot of questions around, what do I include or what do I pull out, or when I'm going to sell. Lots of folks make adjustments to pull out one time and owner related stuff. So that's something we could talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of that is like hard to implement early on when it doesn't really matter to anybody internally, but you'll thank yourself later.
Right. The key is building an agency that you could eventually sell, and not just waking up and saying, "Oh, I'm going to sell my agency today."
Right.
You got to do it with intentionality.
Yeah. Okay. So the fifth and final key point here is concentration. So not having a concentration on a specific one client or a couple of clients that are making up a majority of your revenue. I typically look at if it's over 20 to 25%, I would call that a concentration. The other thing I see is like as agencies are working with larger companies like the Apples, the Googles of the world, they're working with several different divisions within that same company. So just watching those and keeping an eye on those, what your risk exposure is to a particular client.
Yep, agree, love it. Okay, that's it. That's our 5 tips. We're going to go into more detail about that in future episodes, but hopefully that gives you a primer on how you might think about some steps you can take now to give yourself optionality.
If you,
Meredith, it was fun.
It was fun. If the audience likes what they hear, see, please give us feedback. The link, the quick bullets, if you like that, let us know.
Mm-hmm. And hit the subscribe button. Can't emphasize that enough if you want to hear more or see more.
Awesome.
Give us a subscribe. All right. Take care.